Another key requirement that is to be carried out by top management is described in subclause 5.3, Organizational Roles, Responsibilities and Authorities. This subclause is also part of Chapter 5 in both the old 2013 revision and in the new 2022 revision of ISO 27001. In the next couple of minutes, we are going to have a look at this subclause and learn what are the requirements, what these requirements imply, and how to implement the required activities. In other words, we are going to answer the questions on what needs to be done, why does it have to be done, and how can it be done. Please note that I can only provide you with guidance on how to implement certain requirements. In the end, it depends on the type and nature of your organization, but I try to keep my implementation guidance as generic as possible. So this time the requirement we're dealing with is that top management has to ensure that responsibilities and authorities for roles relevant to information security are assigned and communicated throughout the organization. Governance is most effective when everybody in the organization fulfills a clear purpose and is aware of what is expected of them. For that reason, organizations develop formal roles and responsibilities that describe the individual activities personnel is obliged to perform on a daily basis. Typically, roles are associated to a job title that tell insiders and outsiders what they can expect from them. Each individual has a certain rank within the organization and thus a position within the command and control structure. This is often referred to as a hierarchy. Typical ranks include associates, managers, senior managers, directors, vice presidents, and C-level executives. According to ISO 27001, top management is responsible to ensure that roles and responsibilities, as well as the necessary authorities relevant to information security, are assigned and communicated with special regards to reporting on the performance of the ISMS towards top management. Please don't forget that the scope of ISO 27001 is limited to information security only. For example, a reporting line established between the head of the sales department and, let's say, the CFO to exchange information on current sales numbers is not associated to information security by any means, and it would therefore not be deemed necessary by the standard. However, it's a good idea to have such a reporting line, but it's not within the scope of the ISMS and would therefore not be within the scope of a certification audit. It is also not necessary for top management to assign all roles, responsibilities, and authorities. It is enough to delegate authority to an adequate degree to this. Although it is highly recommended that top management should approve major roles, responsibilities, and authorities of the ISMS. Organizations need to formally assign roles and responsibilities to individuals in order to ensure governance structures to work properly. Many organizations use a hierarchy matrix or a chart for that purpose. Here you can see an empty example of a hierarchy chart. You probably wonder what hierarchy stands for. A hierarchy matrix specifies 4 roles. These are responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Responsible describes the person who actually carries out a task or activity. Somebody who is accountable is ultimately answerable on an activity and usually manages those who are responsible of it. Consulted and informed describes roles who need to be consulted and informed within the execution of activities. Here you can see an example of a hierarchy matrix. For each activity, the relevant responsibilities are assigned to roles within the organization. This is just an example, but it should help you understand how roles and responsibilities are connected with each other. Notice how for each activity, at least one role owns the accountability for it. This has to be the case because accountability can never be shared. So in case of activity 1, the CEO is accountable. In case of activity 2, the CISO is accountable. And in case of activity 4 and 5, the CEO and the CISO are responsible. With the other roles in this matrix, we have a service desk agent and a privacy officer. Both of them are not accountable for any of these activities, but they are responsible or need to be consulted or informed. Several considerations have to be taken into account when working with a hierarchy matrix. These include skills, recreation of duties, and conflict of interest. First of all, you have to make sure that individuals possess the required skills to carry out certain activities. If that's not the case, it might not be the best idea for them to be assigned to a certain role. If you don't know anything about software development, you should probably not be working as a developer. The term segregation of duties describes the concept of having more than one person required to complete a task. In other words, the requester, approver, and provisioner cannot be the same person. This is mainly done to prevent fraud and theft. When assigning activities to individuals, organizations should make sure that these assignments do not create conflicts of interest, as this might be detrimental to the success of the organization. We will learn more about this topic when we talk about organizational controls. So subclause 5.3 is another example of certain requirements that have to be carried out by top management. And as I mentioned before, these requirements have to be well communicated to top management before they can make a decision on whether they want to implement an ISMS according to ISO 27001 or not. So this has to be part of the business case. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it really is advisable to mention these requirements within the business case. And this is also something that has to be clear from the very beginning. Now, some of the requirements that we just mentioned in clause 5.1 and 5.3 will also be described in further detail in other clauses like 5.2 when it's about the information security policy. But to begin with, it's important for top management to be aware of the fact that they have to carry out certain roles and responsibilities that they can delegate and that are truly necessary to establish, maintain, and run a successful ISMS.